Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films, and today we're going to focus on the mesh concept. It's a lot of fun to watch film of and try to diagnose or analyze. Horizontal focus of the two drag routes, a running back route, is important as well. But I will tell you from personal experience, it's no fun to defend unless you've got some intel, pre-snap tendencies or data that gives you some information as on the defensive side about what concept is going to occur. Oftentimes at the NFL and even the college level, it's a third down play, third and mid, third and four, third and five, third and six. I'm going to use some graphics on screen to kind of illustrate the routes that I think are most important, and here they are. It's the two drag routes, and then the running back releasing, oftentimes running a wheel, sometimes just running out into the flats. It's my opinion that this red route, which is illustrated by Tank Dell, is the one that always comes open. The drag route that occurs or originates, I should say, from opposite of the running back. The running back here is going to clear out the inside linebacker. This is obviously 2024 film. He's going to clear out the inside linebacker. We're talking about this route here, clearing out that inside linebacker. And in addition to that, there's not just one, but two pick routes that occur on this play to allow Dell to run away from DJ Reed. Like I said, it's 2024 film. DJ Reed was still in New York. The running back route, clearing out space, the picks is obviously a big part of it as well. And there is at times a reliance on the smaller, quicker receivers for these types of concepts. Tank Dell fits the bill, here perfectly. He's running underneath of a second potential screen here, by the way, in the form of the high side drag. When I say high side drag, there's two drags that occur on the mesh concept. One goes underneath Dell and one goes over the top. That's normally the one that is executing the pick or the screen, but sometimes those things are a read, during the play by the receivers or tight ends that are running the route. That was really the best and most complete example that I could give you as far as how the running back route opens up a portion of the field, most often into the boundary. Now, this is admittedly preseason film, preseason 2025, in fact. But you get another example of it here. It's a third and four. And in fact, the Colts on the previous snap had ran a version of mesh as well. So first things first, the running back route into the boundary is going to clear out the inside linebacker, Trenton Simpson, okay, illustrated by that red line there, just matching the width of that route, and he turns it into a wheel. In addition, there's a pick or a rub from the top side that's going to open up space for this receiver to run onto. In fact, it's an illegal pick, and the penalty is thrown. But that pick occurs, it really gives you a 2-for-1. It wipes out the other inside linebacker, Teddy Buchanan. In addition, the man defender, Keon Martin, who's running with the slot or the number 2 receiver. There's the pick as it occurs. It originates from the tight end to the top side, one of the two tight ends to the top side, I should say. And as you can see, it gets a 2-for-1, first in the form of Buchanan, the inside linebacker, and second, Keon Martin, the nickel, who was chasing the slot receiver across the field. It's an easy touchdown that, like I said, gets called back. It's a cool concept. At the high school level, it's not oftentimes run this cleanly, of course. The screens or picks, first of all, refs don't pick up on them as quickly as NFL guys do, number one. Number two, it's often a little bit more difficult to find players willing to screen for a teammate to get open with the same level of efficiency, if you will. Building off of the concept or the major point that I've made so far, which is that the running back route is often a precursor to where the football is going to go. I'm going to display this play from the Ravens road win against the Dolphins, week 9 of 2025. It's a 3rd and 1. And there's some high-level reactions, if you ask me, occurring here between Roquan Smith and Buchanan, the inside linebacker that I just talked about on the previous play. Basically, they're reading the running back's release, in my opinion. So in this case, the running back is releasing into the boundary, running a wheel route, first of all. And what that does is it pushes Buchanan over the top to handle that wheel. But the really subtle brilliance, if you ask me, is that Roquan Smith is pushing with the running back as well. I think they've got some pre-snap indication or information that it could be mesh. My guess is that it's the result of having a wide receiver in the backfield, first of all, and second of all, a running back set to the bottom side in the form of Devon Achane. In any case, the way the Ravens read it, the inside linebacker, Roquan Smith, Unfortunately, drops this interception, but it's a great read or great setup, positioning, if you will, because of the routes. Again, you've got the drag that is occurring from the top side of the screen is opposite of the running back, and he's trying to run onto this open or vacated space. In addition, the Dolphins, look, they have a wide open tight end in the middle of the field. The Ravens have blown this coverage where you've got three to the boundary. And in fact, it was something that Zach Orr's defense had a ton of trouble with in 2025, one of a number of things. When I say three into the boundary, what I'm talking about is tight end, running back who's split out as a receiver, and then a receiver who's set up in the backfield. That's three into the boundary. You've got three eligible receivers into the short side of the field. Like I said, it's an unfortunate drop by Roquan Smith. The score, I think, is 28-6 here, so it didn't matter. The game was over. But a great read, if you ask me, by him and Buchanan. Great adjustment. This receiver, look at the separation that is available to him. Again, it's as a result of one screen occurring up here at the top side of our screen, and it's quite intentional. The release here by the inside slot receiver is going to hedge and force Wiggins to go underneath. Oftentimes, you'll get a second pick with over the middle, very much like I showed you with the first play that we talked about with the Texans. Tank Dell, the 31-yard reception against the Jets in 2024. In this case, we get a really brilliant reaction from Roquan Smith and Teddy Buchanan that, unfortunately for the Ravens, on that night at least, did not result in an interception. I want to try to show some of the targets against each particular, each particular route. In this case, we're going to focus on the running back. This is 2025 film. I think week 15, easy touchdown for the Bills against the Patriots. Most of these mesh iterations generally attack to the boundary. So first, we've got Cook lined up into the boundary, the short side of the field, bottom of our screen. And he's releasing, running that wheel-ish type route. With such little space down here, he's really just running out into the flats. This is the route that I contend ends up being open more often than anything else, the drag from the opposite side. Josh Allen reads this super quick because the outside corner into the boundary, I think it's Christian Gonzalez. He's going to go with the tight end route, Dawson Knox 88, illustrated by that red line. So in addition to that, the Bills have created kind of like a mirrored mesh concept, which is really cool if you ask me. The motion man coming across here, Khalil Shakir, is basically running a mirrored concept to what James Cook is. So when I talk about the running back release, oftentimes being a precursor to where the ball will go, this is really well done by the Bills. It doesn't matter as far as Josh Allen goes because he recognized immediately that Gonzalez hedges to the inside, but they've basically created two running back release routes, one by Cook, one by Shakir, to functionally attempt to open up space for both of those routes. Now, New England, again, boundary side coverage is oftentimes stressed, if you ask me, by these horizontal drag concepts. You can see that Gonzalez has briefly gone with the tight end. Ball's already out from Josh Allen. It's not just that it's a linebacker. It's the leverage that the linebacker had here on Cook and the corner vacating. Since the corner Gonzalez vacated, Allen knows he can just throw this out into the flats as quick as possible, get it to Cook, and even if the linebacker is there closer, Cook generally, breaks the first tackle, makes guys miss. I'm not going to be able to show you a completion to each and every one of the possible routes. Another aspect of this concept that typically shows up, along with the two drags and the running back release like you're seeing, is that you'll oftentimes get a second route that sits down in the middle of the field. And the idea, at least as I understand it, is that it would be a third or fourth possible option for the quarterback to get the football to. Generally, the first three is going to occur in this way. Sometimes it's running back first, then the two drags. Sometimes it's the two drags first, and then the running back. But timing of those routes getting all the way across the field is a consideration as well. This one's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. May cut this into a standalone video for just this one play for a lot of reasons. Number one, The mesh actually hits that later developing route that I just talked about over the middle of the field. In addition, Seattle, look, they're up 30 to 10 at this point in time. Into the fourth quarter, I believe. Cam Ward gave Seattle trouble because Mike McDonald and Aiden Durde, they're so focused on four-man rush concepts to retain the ability to disguise or alter change coverages post-snap. Basically, having that seventh defender consistently available in coverage allows you to have a wider umbrella of looks, but also disguise things better. Cam Ward was able to move around in the pocket some, and you'll get a little bit of an idea of that here. Like I said, this is the point at the point in time where we are here. It's a third down, 3rd and 5 to be precise, and the score is 30 to 10. Seattle's up by a lot, but Cam Ward got a couple of late scores here that really pulled things close. I think it ended up being 30 to 23. In any case, Seattle's showing man, and one of the ways to kind of tell that is Josh Jobe is an outside corner. Reek Woolen is an outside corner as well. They're both on the same side. But what's happening is this is very similar, in fact, to a play in the Super Bowl that ended up in a strip sack by Derek Hall. They drop out into a Tampa 2. The red route emanating from the bottom side of our screen, the left side of Tennessee's offense, is the one that I claim ends up opening up more often than anything else. However, on this play, the blue route is the one that is targeted. It's because Cam Ward is able to escape this pressure. In addition to that, Nick Emanwari at the top side of the screen, initially lined up to the bunch, we're talking about right here, probably gets a little bit too much depth. Him and Josh Jobe end up being really congested or next to each other. There's the two drags going across. The bottom side drag actually sits down. Oftentimes there's a read associated with this for those drags. Basically, if it's zone, kind of sit down, don't run yourself into work. But you can see what Seattle's playing here. It's a cover 2, right? You got a corner in the flats. In the case of Devin Witherspoon, corner in the flats. In the case of Reek Woolen, who's since moved on to the Eagles, too high safety structure, and Ward is able to step up and escape. And Emanwari, who had initially, like I said, got maybe too much depth, he's going to step up because he sees one route being open. That's this route right here that emanated from the bottom side of our screen. It was the red one that I referred to earlier. Sitting down underneath the zone, Emanwari charges downhill because A, he sees Cam Ward trying to escape, and B, he sees a wide open receiver in front of him, and Ward smartly whips the ball into the middle of the field. Again, it's that route that I talked about a little bit later in the progression, this blue route over the middle that kind of works itself out, kind of becomes available to the quarterback more often than not after those two underneath drag routes have worked themselves out against the defense. Oftentimes stretching man defense horizontally, or in the case of this zone that you see here, giving the defenders, the second level defenders in zone, something to see with their eyes and possibly react to, like Nick Emanwari does here. A couple more here, and not each one is a great example of mesh. This will be one of them, in my opinion. This is 2023 film, in fact. Now, there's no running back releasing out into the flats, so I can't try to convince you that one of these routes should be easier in terms of popping open late. I don't think the Ravens are running a great version of this from a technical standpoint, but it does end up being a touchdown to Zay Flowers. Still kind of illustrates my point. And what I mean is, where the mesh oftentimes hits, that's into the boundary. The only difference here is that the running back, like I said, is not releasing in a route. In fact, Gus Edwards, still with Baltimore at this point in 2023, is cutting the topside defensive end or edge defender. Now, Flowers will end up being open for a number of reasons. So the underneath element of this, the way that the receivers release, both of them, the outside receivers, OBJ with Baltimore back then, and then Zay Flowers here, it kind of gets interesting reaction from the two outside corners and then from the two safeties. It looks to me like one of the safeties IDs that this is mesh, and he'll kind of sit here on Andrews in the middle of the field. You can see that the boundary side corner has released OBJ underneath, basically let someone else handle that work. Flowers ends up matched up with a running back, but in addition, that boundary side corner who's looking for work, he steps to Andrews. We're talking about moving from the boundary here into the middle of the field to basically help out on that route from Andrews that normally would come open a little bit later in the progression, if you accept, my assertion there. As it stands, Lamar escapes a totally destroyed pocket and then finds Zay Flowers down into the boundary. It's like I said, he's matched up against a linebacker in this case. There was no running back release into the boundary. This is really Lamar making things work, first of all, but second of all, whether you're in zone, man, or match principles, it can stress and both stretch the defense horizontally in a way that can become easy to exploit. In both of the last two examples I gave you, the third down conversion in the fourth quarter by Cam Ward over the middle, and then this touchdown find from Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers in 2023, the defense had been stretched horizontally, whether it was man, zone, match, whatever, and then athletic or mobile quarterback able to find a guy later in the progression, perhaps not exactly the way that it gets drawn up. Another one that's involving the Ravens from an offensive standpoint. This is not a Ravens-centric video necessarily, but I have so much film of the Ravens, the Lions, and the Seahawks, it stands to reason that more often than not, if I'm looking for a concept, a coverage, or an offensive play call, I'm going to find it among one of those three teams' films. So this is way back in 2024 AFC divisional round. It's a 3rd and 8. I believe we're into the first half, and Baltimore obviously has the football. So here's the routes. And it's not exactly a perfect example of mesh, which is why I referred to it as mesh-ish, but is a really great example of talking about how it can exploit boundary side coverage. So Mark Andrews' route is the red route from the top side of the screen. He's lined up as the boundary side X receiver, and he's going to be chased by or covered by Rasul Douglas. Buffalo is going to play zone to the field and man to the boundary. It was a big discussion point after that game about how much zone versus man the Bills played, etc. And, oftentimes gets lost on even national commentators that NFL teams, college teams, and even high school teams play a ton of zone to the field and man to the boundary. You can see that all of these defenders, you got a too high safety structure. All of these defenders, that guy's a little bit lost in the graphic for whatever reason, are playing zone. Now, you do have a match here with the route by Isaiah Likely, which is why I call it mesh-ish, because these two routes from Andrews and Likely are not going on those paths there. They're not two drags. Andrews is definitely running a drag across the field, but Likely's route is kind of shooting into this empty space here. I generally call that a climb concept. In any case, what happens, the way that it works out, is that Lamar Jackson is able to scramble because that space right there was vacated by the boundary side corner. And in addition, you've got the route from Likely is pulling a defender as well. It's a really great tackle by Taron Johnson for the Bills, who's since left Buffalo at this time. I believe he's in Las Vegas and apparently in some type of contract holdout. But he's going to go on that type of angle and basically try to tackle Lamar Jackson, and he does so inbounds with no pretty much help at all other than the sideline to assist him. This last one is actually the opposite of the way that I have been referring thus far. And what I mean is that where the route and or the quarterback scrambling, in the case of Lamar the last two times, ends up going into the boundary, it still, I think, kind of illustrates my point that these coverages are oftentimes stressed by these underneath drags, whereby if you're in some type of quarters, match, split field coverage, then you're reading number one's release and kind of allowing him to flow underneath to the underneath coverage. This is mesh-ish in my opinion. Jamar Chase is going to be the target. It's going to be a big gain from the bottom side of our screen, the boundary, up to the field. But the point still stands, in my opinion, that it's a mesh-type concept. The tight end here is going to first screen this defender, Marlon Humphrey, and then the receiver who was the beneficiary of a screen is actually going to screen or pick Roquan Smith in the middle of the field. Brandon Stevens, who was the boundary side corner for the Ravens at the bottom side of the screen, you can see he's pointing and releasing Jamar Chase underneath. So he's, quote, zoning off here, if you will. Meanwhile, Nate Wiggins at the top side of the screen, he's playing man, functionally just man, on number one at the top. The nameplates, for whatever reason, still show up even when I magnify the screen, so my apologies for that. That's obviously Trenton Simpson, number one, and number two, you can't see Nate Wiggins at all. He's pretty much obscured. But what you can see is that Chase running his route from the boundary or the bottom side of the field underneath, Roquan Smith's ID'd it. He's seen it. But this receiver is going to pick or screen or rub him and prevent him from being able to keep up with Jamar Chase, which he probably wouldn't be able to do anyway. There's the guy who theoretically in man would have been playing Jamar Chase. Still be a difficult cover, right? In the case of Brandon Stevens. Number two, there's the other corner who, if it was true zone, could be sitting up there. These combo or mixed coverages where it's man to one side, zone to the other, or where you have a reaction to the underneath drag, which is what my contention is here. This, to me, is a reaction from Brandon Stevens to that route there going underneath 5 yards, as opposed to something like this. Of course, Brandon Stevens would probably stay with him. My point is modern coverages that are oftentimes either A, based on field and boundary differences or include field and boundary differences, or have the outside corners, in the case of Brandon Stevens here, reading one and releasing him underneath to find work somewhere else. They're oftentimes exploited by this concept. My overall contention is that the route that emanates from the opposite side of the running back is the one that generally pops open the easiest, number one. And number two, that the boundary side coverage is the one that is exploited in the most direct manner. Here, this last example that I show you is obviously an inversion of those 2 points. In any case, let me know what you think of the video. I enjoy doing conceptual style film studies as best I can. The usage of mesh, my guess would be at the NFL level, 50 to 55%, maybe as much as 60 is probably on either 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, or occasionally 2nd and 7 and 2nd and 8. But if you don't have reliable data or tendencies on the defensive side to try to match up with it, if the concept is just thrown in there on a random 1st and 10, I feel like NFL defenses are really having difficulty with this concept for a variety of reasons that I mentioned, throughout this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number one. If you have other suggestions for concepts you'd like to see me take a look at, I enjoy doing these in the off season in particular on the defensive side of the ball. Appreciate you guys' time.